Hello and welcome to another episode of What Sayeth the Crooked Nose. Today I'm going to be talking to another special EMF, alum. This will be Anya. She's also an EMT, and from what I've gathered, she may be a little bit more in the spiritual path than the average person, so to speak. And I'm really curious just to hear her thoughts, hear how she came into the EMF from her background. She traveled to or has met multiple people, including people from my own cohort. So she holds a very special place in my heart because of her association to people who were very close to my heart. And so for me personally, I think this is going to be a great call. And then as a trainer, right, as an EMT and elite mentorship trainer, I just love to see how people have been able to take this material, right, of what we've learned and be able to make it their own, be able to share the wisdom and be able to help others really internalize this and learn from it and, grow as well. And so I think that you are in for a wonderful episode. I'm really looking forward to it. And well, I guess I'll see you inside, as well as like and subscribe, maybe comment. Let me know, hey, what was it that you liked? Did we maybe do a flyby? Did we leave you in the dust somewhere? If we didn't, explain something, maybe we were starting to, and then we got, thrown off or, whatever. Hey, let us know. Let us know what questions you've got. Let us know what feedback you got. And hey, may love and truth always guide your path. Anya, Lynette, am I Lene? How do I
It's
say it?
Lene. Yeah,
Lene.
thank you for
Okay.
the second pronunciation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
Anya
welcome.
Lene.
Well, I had to first, show, my American pedigree, right, by saying Lynette, and I had to be like, well, wait a minute, I bet it's Lene, right, especially with the apostrophe there and the double T. Hey, so allow me to, to give you a proper introduction, right? Anya is a firm believer in being the best that she can be always. Personal growth has been her priority for nearly 50 years, and being there to guide others on their journey is her passionate purpose. Um,
Yeah.
I like that. I like P words as well. That's a good one. But so passionate purpose, how did you come about that passionate purpose?
I've always had passion for life, always, and life has I've had lots of challenges in life, and goodness, created progress through all that. But the one thing that I love about myself is I've just always had passion. I kept
Mm,
believing, and my purpose is to keep going and to keep finding that, hanging on to that passion, keep believing in it, and just keep moving forward always. That's just who I am. That's who I was born to be. And I really want to share that with other people. I just believe life is more fun when you have a passion
mm.
or passion just for life in general. That's how I am. I'm
Well,
just
I mean, yeah, I can't think of any place where if you have passion, life isn't better, right?
right.
Even if you're doing mundane things, right? Say you're learning, but if you have a passion for learning, the learning comes alive. Say
Mhm.
that you're just at work, so maybe you're not, self-employed and you work for, a company. Well, if you
Yeah,
have a passion for what you're doing, again, that comes alive and the time just kind of flies by.
exactly. That just had me think of something. I left high school early because I didn't fit into high school. I wasn't doing the same things that all the other high school kids were doing. And I left early, went to college.
Oh, well,
You
that
were,
wasn't me. That wasn't me. I left early, but it was not of my own volition. Yeah,
oh,
we
I
can, we can
gotcha.
talk about that. I also didn't fit in all that well, but yeah, keep going. So then
Okay.
you went to college.
No, I chose to and went to college. So my senior year, everybody else was having their senior year and having fun, and I was in college. And there was a man there that was probably in his 70s, and he said he just loved learning and he was a professional student. And in my mind and in my heart, that very moment, I said, I'm going to be like him. I'm going to be a professional student and always learn and
Mhm.
learn and learn. So that, yeah, I hadn't thought about that in a while, but that was definitely, he struck up a passion with me, and I love learning and I love
Mhm.
growing. So that was a really poignant moment back then when I was 17, and I
Oh, that's
decided to be
awesome.
a professional student just like him. Yeah.
Yeah, so my time in high school didn't go the best. So in high school, I was a goth kid, and I live in Utah. And
Yeah.
so that, Utah now is a little bit more accepting, well, quite a bit more accepting, but I had a hard time. I couldn't go a single day without being screamed obscenities at, people, because I'd wear like Slayer shirts or like Marilyn Manson shirts, and, big old leather jacket, had long hair. I get a lot of people who, effing Satan worshiper. Of course, they use the real word, effing goat slayer. It's like, oh, yeah, at the time, it was like goat slayer. Hey, that sounds actually pretty badass. I'm kind of okay with that. And but I didn't fit in. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like the rules for the sake of rules. I'd even ask, questions about like, hey, how do I apply this? And it was just, again, hey, shut up and just learn.
Mm.
And so I found myself skipping nearly every day. I'd hang out with my buddy Cordray, and we'd go to the local village inn and play Magic the Gathering and drink coffee. And that was pretty much my high school days.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. Village Inn was the hangout for everybody that was in my town as well. I didn't
Mm.
hang out at Village Inn, but my siblings did, and they'd have that gallon of coffee and that pitcher or whatever, and you'd sit and
Yep.
have coffee and visit, and they'd come and refill
Yep.
that big thing of coffee. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
we have similar backgrounds with that. That's funny.
That's funny. So we usually spend, a few hours there, and so we tip
Yes.
really well. So, if we had a bill totally of, total of like, $5 between the two of us, and then we'd tip $5 typically. And so that way the staff really liked us, and,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
didn't really ask questions, even though, they easily could have. And yeah, it's funny the where you learn and where you get passion. I started reading philosophy when I
Mm.
was 17. So I didn't do well in school, but I read philosophy for fun. I read adult, fiction for fun. And then it
Oh,
forced me to like look up words and, figure and build my own vocabulary, build my vernacular. And that's not something I got from school. School got me to check out and actually kicked me out because I didn't go, because my
yeah.
attire was disruptive. So yeah, craziness.
Mm.
So what prompted you though to be like, hey, high school isn't difficult enough as a 17-year-old. Let me go ahead and go to college.
Mm. Big dreams. I
Mm,
always wanted to travel the world. I remember when I was 9 years old and went to my grandparents' house, and they were showing us slides of all the countries that they had been visiting. And at that point in time, I'm only 9, and I didn't realize that the world that we're learning about in school was actually real and you could actually go there.
mm,
So I've been on that trajectory ever since, figuring out how can I travel the world like my grandparents did. And so getting out of school early, I was bored in high school. It just wasn't moving fast enough. It wasn't going far enough. And so I've been on that train trying to figure out how can I get there? How can I travel around the world? And I wrote down just a few days ago all the different places I've actually been to. It was on one of the EMF calls. Somebody was talking about being at an ocean. And I think it
mm,
was Peter who said, which oceans have you been to? And I never thought of that. And I decided to write down what oceans I've been to. And it's a lot of them. And it made me realize that, wow, I really have done a lot of travel, because I've been thinking I haven't done enough yet, that I still have
mm.
so much more to do. But writing that down was really an aha moment that I've been to a lot of oceans, because I don't think of it as oceans. I think of it as countries.
Mhm.
Yeah. But yeah, my grandparents sparked that interest, and I've been trying to get there ever since.
Mm.
World
I mean, the
travel.
oceans kind of create the space for the land. So I like that. I like that idea of, looking at what oceans you've been to.
Yeah.
And so you had an aha moment. Did you find that you no longer had that need to travel as much now that
Oh no, I still
well,
do.
okay.
Oh, still do. That's why I was thinking I haven't hardly been anywhere yet. So just a couple days ago, when I wrote down all the places, then I was really feeling proud that, wow, you have done a lot so far. And I still want more, a lot more. And
Mm.
I've tried all kinds of career building to get me to travel to all these different countries. And none of it has worked out. All the things I've done have basically been because I chose to. It
Mm.
wasn't a career that got me to those places. So now I feel like I'm the closest I've ever been to traveling the world and going to several different countries.
Interesting.
Just
So it sounds like it may not have worked out in the fact that the businesses themselves didn't get you there. However, it may have worked out in that it taught you that if you're going to go, you better do it yourself.
yeah, yeah,
Mm, that's
yeah.
powerful. I like that. And so what are you? So you currently live in Colorado, is
Colorado,
that right?
Colorado.
And are you from Colorado?
Native,
Oh,
born here. Mhm.
Nice. So yeah, I'm from Utah, right? So we are state neighbors, and so you're in Colorado, and what was it that drew your attention to Peter Sage?
Oh, it was pretty interesting. I got an email. So here I was trying to create another business again where I'm going to travel. And I was creating a business to run retreats
Hmm.
because I was thinking early last year about the same time, what do I really want? And I went back to, I really want to travel the world. I really want to enjoy myself. I love hot mineral springs. That's a big passion of mine. Always loved hot mineral springs because Colorado, we have a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, well, I'm going to have retreats and they're all going to be focused around hot mineral springs. And I started the program, and then I couldn't move forward in the program. I did one or two assignments and then was hit with a big block. And I thought, oh, I've wanted this since I was 9, to travel the world. I finally
Yeah.
have a viable not position, but and it wouldn't be a career, but something I'm creating myself, a business I'm creating. How come I can't do the work? And I got a random email from Peter, and I didn't know him at all, but it had said, are you interested in changing your life and changing your peers? And I went, yeah, that's it. That's it. So I signed up with Peter. And I'm coming back around a year later to start working on the retreats again, because I want to combine the two. I want to combine retreats to travel around the world and then also be doing the work with Peter. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so when you do retreats, what is it that you do?
Well, I have been working underneath the title of a massage therapist for
Mhm.
goodness, almost 40 years. And so I've been empowering others for a career already. This is my career that I got when I was 23. So in doing that and seeing a myriad of things, having a career in that field, I specialize on people who are had injuries. So I got them well, but I also got trained to coach them and in health and wellness or emotional coaching. I've already been doing this type of work for a long time. And I knew that I wanted a bigger and greater audience. So I kept tying that in with how can I travel the world and be empowering people and help them to feel better. So I kept focusing on different areas to do this. I just was falling short. So with Peter's program, I realized I'm the one that's holding me back. I'm the one that has a false identity, limiting beliefs. My values were all messed up. And I feel so much cleaner, clearer,
Mm.
focused because of doing, and that's not what I expected. I went to Peter's program thinking it's the people around me that need to change. If all my
Yeah.
peers would change,
Yeah.
then I could focus and move forward, like
Yeah.
that torpedo, like that horse. Have you ever been to a rodeo? Have you ever been to a rodeo at all?
Yeah.
You're familiar with barrel racing?
Yeah.
Okay. So, because I grew up in a very ranch family, all of our relatives went to the rodeo. It's a regular thing. But when the girls, usually girls that ride barrel racing, when they're on the horse and they're in the gate and they have to wait until they open that gate, that horse is there just, that they're going to run this way. But until then, they're held back and they're just like, let me go, let me go, let me go. And that's how I liken it to me. That's my analogy of me. There's a world out there. Let me go, let me go,
Mm.
let me go. And I thought it was the world, all the peers, all the people that I associated with. They're the ones, if, my family, if everybody else around me changed, then that gate would up and I'd be free to, run out there. But Peter's program gave me a huge aha. It was me that was holding me back. And that's why I couldn't move forward in the retreat program. So,
Mm.
so I kind of answered your question in a different way, I think.
No, I
Uh,
like that. I like that. So, you effectively, it sounds like, yeah, help people kind of realize their truest, most authentic self. And
and
you
their
couldn't
potential.
fully do that until you did that yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So I have helped people before, but as a therapist,
Yeah.
I'm going to take care of you. And because I didn't realize I needed to take care of me. So I was busy taking care of everybody else as a therapist. And I watched many people pass away. There was a period of 10 years when I didn't go to any of my clients' funerals because I knew their story, what had happened to them on an emotional level, and they didn't want to face it. They didn't want to do any coaching with me. They didn't want to heal through that. They settled in their illness, and they were just okay with being sick. And I would want to work with them, and they just were okay to just live that way, and then they'd pass away. It was so hard for me to realize that people settle for less in their own life. They don't have that drive. They're not on that horse at that barrel race like I am. I'm trying to, get there and have it all and be it all and do it all. And it's just interesting for me that other people don't have that drive. And that's when I realized also I wanted to reach greater audiences and have more people that are on the same trajectory as me, where they want to have it all or more or whatever it is. And it was just sad for me. I literally didn't go to funerals for 10 years. But prior to that and after that, I went to my clients' funerals.
Was part of it just kind of hard for you because you knew that you could actually help them if they actually wanted the help?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's exactly where it's at. I've gotten all kinds of certifications over the years, and I'm certified as several different life coaches and a counselor and all kinds of healing areas. And I could see it, and I would talk to them, and they were like, "Oh, it's okay, it's all right." Just made me so sad. Made me so sad that they were just willing to give up and pass away with an illness that brought them to their passing.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see how that could be difficult. And it really seems like it's more perspective that maybe drives the priority, right? Because they probably just didn't have any perspective of the idea that, well, if you don't have health, what do you have? And if they have that perspective, like, oh, well, health is, my health and me showing up is literally the underlying factor of everything I do in my life. Because if I can't show up, well, then I can't do anything, right? And so maybe they just didn't look at it that way. I wonder.
They would have had a totally different perspective than me, for sure. And I had known them when they were healthy and well. So my clients, I had the same clients in this whole 40-year period.
Yeah.
So I watched them raise their kids and have different careers or whatever was changing in their life. And when the changes would happen, they didn't want to move through it and heal through it. They just accepted it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm sick now with this cancer, I'm going to die. But I knew their emotional issue that brought them to the cancer, or brought them to the lupus, or brought them to the, I have so many sad stories of my clients. One settled with MS, and she doesn't even have MS. She broke her neck. And yeah.
Yeah,
It was just
I spend a lot of years in the medical field, about 6 of them in pediatrics, working in medical research and data analytics. And it seems that when people go to the doctor, they see the doctor as the ultimate authority, right? They're almost like they're looking at an approximation of God. And when this approximation of God, who barely even looks up to look at your face, is just filling out paperwork, not because he's a bad person or not because she's a bad person, because they literally don't have the time, because the insurance company is like, well, you only have this much amount of time. And then when they say, oh, well, based upon these lab results, then that are, graphed out to then graft out as thanks to Pfizer or Moderna or whatever, well, then you have this disease. And so many people will say, oh my God, I am this disease now. And they may not use those words, but it's the identity that they have.
You're absolutely right, 100%. I came from a pharmaceutical background. So my father was a 7th-generation pharmacist. So we had a family drugstore. And he didn't want to do that. My grandfather did, and his grandfather did, and his grandfather did. So 7 generations of a pharmacy. And I got a job in a health food store when I had just turned 16. And that totally turned me around. And so I got educated, and I learned, and I studied biofeedback and psychology in college. So I've learned a lot. My practice was based on insurance. So insurance paid me. I went to a college it was a chiropractic college where I got my massage training. So I worked on injuries, people who were in car accidents, like broken necks, broken backs, torn rotator cuff. I had injuries of,
Yeah.
that's what I was literally working on. And I got them their prescriptions, and the insurance company would pay me. And I could see the links between the emotional and the physical and the mental. I could see them because I'm trained on all those areas, but they couldn't. And when they went to the doctor, and I went to the doctor with plenty of my clients, and as a listening ear, and I would take notes, and we go back to my office and we would discuss their options. A lot of my people did go to the option level with me, but then the other ones just, well, the doctor says I have this.
Yeah.
And they would buy into it, and then I would watch them wither away. And it was just so sad.
That is
So
sad.
sad to me.
Well, and
Yeah.
the language that we use that reinforces it, right? So say that they have a torn rotator cuff and they get prescribed, I don't know, maybe opioids or something. Instead of saying, "Ow, I hurt, I'm going to take a pain med to lessen that," they say, "Oh, I need one." And while they may kind of throw that away and not think about it, well, there's this idea that I talk about a lot. Bruce Lee mentioned to be very careful about, how you speak to yourself, because your body can't help but to listen. Your body's listening, saying, "Oh, you need one of these? Okay, well, all right, well, let's go ahead and put this pain in perpetuity, because apparently we need this."
Mhm. Exactly. You're spot on every time when yeah, in this conversation. And I would like to say that maybe 3/4 of the other side of that were people that got well, and they canceled their surgeries and they walked away. I had a man carried into my office one time. He had hurt his back at a gym, and the gym people knew me.
Mhm.
And he had hurt his back because he was lifting incorrectly and he couldn't walk. So somebody mentioned me, and so they carried him into my office. I was across town in a whole nother place, and yeah, so I worked on him, and he walked up off the table
That's
and
awesome.
left. Yeah, and also during that session, I got rid of something else for him. He had been plagued by a pain for 12 years. And when he was laying on the table and I'm working on him, because it's not massage that I did,
Mhm.
I did neuromuscular therapy is what I'm trained in. And so I'm working on him. He's kind of smiling and kind of laughing. And I'm thinking, well, that's odd. You come in here where you can't walk, somebody carries you in and you're in pain. And I finally said, so what's going on? And he starts to laugh and he tells me, well, you're recreating this pain that I've been living with for 12 years. And he said, I've been to doctor after doctor, nobody can figure out what's wrong. And you're intensifying that pain right now. And I said, well, that's good. That means we're going to get rid of it. And when the session was done, not only was his back pain completely gone, but so was this particular pain that he'd had for 12 years, 12 consecutive years of
Yeah.
nonstop. It was gone. He gave me a big hug and a big kiss. And he said, I can't wait to go home to my wife. And he came back one more time just to make sure that it was gone, and it was gone. And so
Oh my God, that's
I have a
awesome.
lot more stories on that since. That's what made me really happy, is when I could do that for people. But I did learn that you just need to accept people where they're at.
Mm.
It just was heartbreaking for me, for those people that I knew them when they were healthy and vibrant, but they bought into the sickness and they didn't want to deal with the emotional side because the emotions was too painful for
Yeah.
them to move through that pain that brought them. And then they settled in the illness, and that was easier for them. It was just really hard for me to watch.
Yeah,
But
isn't
the
that
other,
isn't that crazy? The way that the mind works, the mind is so much more afraid of perceived pain than the idea that fearing that perceived pain and hunkering down from that perceived pain may actually
yes,
lead to cessation of life.
yes, yeah. And like I said, 10 years, I just couldn't go to funerals for 10 years. I
Mhm.
had that many people passing away because of these type of issues, the emotional that led them to the physical. Yeah.
Mm.
I love the ones that, I've worked on a lot of really amazing, wonderful people, and it's really fun to have them walk away and
Yeah.
have their pain gone. And a lot of times in just one session.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I had the opportunity to help who later became a friend of mine, a local man here in Utah, former Navy SEAL. And SEALs aren't really known for taking care of their bodies, right? They kind of beat their bodies up, and
Oh,
just a lot of arthritis, a lot of if you're doing a a 20-kilometer road march, wearing combat boots on the road with, say, 80 to 120 pounds on your back, depending on what it is that you're carrying,
Yeah.
your body's gonna have something to say about that. If you do it over and over and over again, if you get, shot at, if you are in wartime situations, you get concussed, and that concussion, say like a blast wave concussion, that can cause a TBI. I mean, there's all sorts of things, but yeah. So he had arthritis, and like you said, if you affect the root cause, within one session, right? He went from just like this giant grin on his face afterwards, and really couldn't formulate words very well, right? Took him through a deep meditation, and so he really had to try and like pull his words together. But he sent me such a heartfelt testimony 3 days later, and just said, "Hey, I worked with Josh, and yeah, and this is my third day in the gym." Right. I used to not even be able to come because, I had disruptive arthritis, and now I'm putting more weight up. And it's just like, well, holy crap, look at that. And just to come from a background of, medicine, part of that was combat medic, which I can see, our medical system and establishment being along those lines, right? Combat medic. Hey, you get shot, right? Go to the hospital. You have a major heart attack or something, go to the hospital, right? You break your leg, go get it set at the hospital. But if you have a chronic condition, right, the hospital is terrible. Terrible. Why? Because they treat you like the only thing you're missing is a drug, or the only thing that's wrong with you is that you haven't had a part of your body cut off or cut out, and that just
Yeah.
it's absurd. It's absurd the way that we treat people.
Well, to be fair, they're trained in what they're trained in. So
Oh, that's why I
I,
didn't say doctors. I'm saying hospital. Yeah. So
yeah,
exactly right. Doctors are a victim of the system of which they're trained in, and where are they
yeah,
trained in buildings that are paid for by pharmaceutical companies. So literally the you know syllabus, right, that they have throughout their entire
yeah,
curriculum is effectively figure out the exact piece of the anatomy, and then figure out the drug that associates to that.
exactly.
And that's it. And they spend like 2 hours maybe on nutrition. It's like,
Yeah, that's it. That is it. And so they don't know. It gives me chills because I pride my I am highly educated in all of these areas. My dad taught me a lot about the pharmaceutical medications. I had a copy from him of the PDR, the physician's desk reference. And when my clients would come in and they'd give me the list of meds they were on, we'd look them up in the book and I would find out the different side effects of them. But doctors, the funniest story I had one time was I worked in an OT's office. She was one of my clients. And so she hired me to come in and work on her clients. And she was an occupational therapist, and she specialized in hand and arm injuries.
mhm.
And she would come in and sit and watch me work on these people and get rid of their pain because I release the soft tissue. It's the soft tissue that's creating a lot of the issues. You don't need the medication. A lot of
Mhm.
times you don't need surgery. But when these people are under insurance care, they've got to follow the protocol. So I had one client, and I'm working with her wrist and her hand, and she had told me that her elbow was bothering her a little bit. Well, I couldn't work on the elbow without the doctor agreeing that I could work on her elbow. So I said, well, go ahead and see the doctor, because we had one particular doctor that was doing all the surgeries.
Isn't that insane? That is so insane that you can't just be like, oh, you're here to see like your wrist, which is part of your arm. Yeah, I'll totally look at your elbow. But the fact that
And
insurance like, nope, 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 we got to make more money. We have to go ahead and get another doctor's visit.
right, exactly. And wait till you hear the rest of the story. So her elbow's bothering her, and I've got the prescription to work on her wrist and her hand. She goes to this one doctor. We only had one surgeon in town that did all the hand surgeries. He told her that the elbow has nothing to do with the wrist. I was like, okay, really? The
Right.
muscles? We can't do these movements without the crossover muscles that cross over the joints. So
Mhm.
the elbow is connected to the wrist by bones and by muscles and nerves and fascia. And I thought that was just the silliest answer he could have ever given. So
Mm.
then what I would do is still work on those muscles because it's connected to the wrist. I just couldn't have it in my notes to the insurance that I worked on her elbow.
Yeah. That is it's such a sad state of affairs, right? That
Yeah.
it's so in our face. It's so in our face, right? That and even chronic conditions. I interviewed a lady for a digital summit that I'm hosting, and she was talking about how she had RA.
Oh,
And for RA, she was looking at like, okay, well, what are the traditional therapies? Well, Humira, well, Humira has been, shown to cause lymphoma. Are you freaking out of your? So if I don't want my body to degenerate, I better take this pill that's going to degenerate my body just in a different way. Like, holy cow.
Yeah.
And I saw this Joe Rogan clip where he was speaking with a Dr. Asim Malhotra, and he was breaking down how the statins, right? Statins, they're just, and I think it was episode 1979 for any of those interested. And he was breaking down how statins don't lead to any sort of lessening in mortality. In fact, the research that was done to show that that cholesterol, is a leading factor in any sort of, heart-related conditions, are levels of cholesterol that almost nobody has. Well, so then what these pharmaceutical companies start doing is like, oh, high cholesterol. They don't put it the number, just high cholesterol. And since they pay for the studies, right? And this is where things are even worse than just the doctors aren't the only ones that are held victim and compromised. I was working at the University of Utah in the Williams building. For anyone who knows that this is where the clinical trials office is. Okay, well, so how does the clinical trials office get money? Well, it gets money because researchers want to investigate a new modality, right? Maybe it's a longitudinal study where there is no drug and they're just following people, or maybe it's a drug, which there's usually a whole lot more money in those drug studies. And so now when you get these drug study contracts, well, guess what that does? That allows you to actually hire people. Well, now you're actually like helping a family put food on the table. Well, you're helping a family put food on the table in order to be able to do research that's effectively harnessed and curated by the drug companies that can then sell that and package it and incentivize doctors to sell it. And doctors have these very large student loans in the size of a mortgage, but no house. And so now there's, the doctors are now able to start paying back those student loans, trying to do this debt to society so we can poison people. And so there's the pharmaceutical companies are like the puppeteer, and the puppets are all, they're all good people. They're all people trying to do their benefit. They're all trying to do what they can, and it's all being corrupted because culture starts at the top.
Yeah. It's a business model.
Yeah.
Pharmaceuticals have turned into a business model.
Yep.
It didn't used to be that way. When my dad and my grandfather had our family drugstore, they were kind and helpful to the people who came in, and there weren't that many medications way back then. But once it turned into a business model in the late 80s, just like the vaccines, it turned into a business model to where we can roll out more, and the higher up makes more money, and let's just get more people hooked in. It's like a multi-level business model.
Yeah. Well, and vaccines are actually, the CDC, that part of the vaccines. So run by the DOD, which is not even the FDA. And even though the FDA has been shown to be, under corporate capture, the DOD can just mandate these things.
And who's at the top of the chain? Pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, exactly.
They get so much money with vaccines.
I know. And it's disheartening, but at the same time, we didn't know about this before. And now that we know about this, right, we've seen titans of industry come and go throughout the ages. And even if it does seem hopeless, well, titans of the ages are gonna keep coming and going. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how, people like you, right, people who are out, helping others, right, people like me that are out, helping others as well, maybe not necessarily in an elite form, EMT, right, where you're actually training people in the specific life coaching, as well as doing your healing modalities. I do the healing modalities and do some life coaching. But to see that the good that's being done, right, because hurt people, and if there's less hurt people, well, then there's less hurt people to hurt people. And so by effect, the less hurt people, the higher the consciousness, or at least the higher the level of just vibration and the way people show up. And I just don't see this current business model being able to survive with more and more people coming out of that daze of just pain and guilt and shame I mean, because it's almost as ridiculous as it sounds. It's almost like this idea of, I can't believe what sort of terrible person you are to have gotten cancer. Because people are
Oh,
very ashamed of their chronic diseases, and
yeah.
very afraid, and it becomes their identity, and they
Mm,
hide it, which makes it so much worse.
that's very sad. I know. I personally have never believed. For me, the way I believe for myself with cancer is I just don't believe in it. So I'm never going to be sick with it because I just don't believe in it. I know that we have cancer cells, but I also know that if I break down emotionally to the point to where then my physical is going to break down, then I'm susceptible to getting sick. So for me, and I raised my kids this way too. I was a single parent, raised my kids, and healthy. If you eat well, you think right, you enjoy life, you can keep yourself away from the different illnesses.
Mm. I mean, this is in many ways you can correlate that to what neuroscience is now proving, that the mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality, and
True.
it's going to create the neural pathways. It's going to, the thoughts are going to produce, right, that neurochemical, whether good or bad. And so either an endorphin or maybe a toxin. And if the body's just constantly trying to deal with toxins, and then it starts backing up and starts storing these toxins and not releasing them, well, of course, I mean, of course the body and mind would start breaking down.
Yeah. Yep. That's how it works.
Yeah. Well, and and one of the things that Peter teaches us is, like, isn't that the world that we'd want to work in, or that we'd want to live in, that 1 + 1 = 2? Because if 1 + 1 = 3, how do I deal with that? Right? If we live in a funhouse reality
Yeah.
where I don't have a cause and effect, I just have an effect with no cause. Well,
Mm.
how can I operate in that sort of paradigm? But
Mhm.
since we do have cause and effect, well, that's great, because then we can actually start affecting the cause.
Mhm. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm real happy that I have gone through the EMF and now I'm a trainer. And going through the trainer keeps me really focused on all the EMF, the Elite
Mm,
Mentorship Forum material, and growing and changing and learning more than I've ever done in my whole life.
yeah.
I've been on a growth pattern always, but didn't realize that I had all these limiting beliefs and false values that prevented me from actually receiving the growth and obtaining the growth that I was striving
Mm,
for. So, like I've alluded to before,
yeah.
was that horse behind that gate, and now that gate is going to be open for me, and I can go out and run whenever I want to. I want to bring that freedom to other people. I want them to know that whatever you aspire to have or be or do in the world, you can.
Mm.
You can. I just believe in it. Believe in having and doing and being what you want. And this program for me was a great vehicle to get there because I
And
had no idea that I was holding myself back.
I mean, I remember, so I was listening to a lot of Sadhguru, and and I was listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson before that led me to Sadhguru.
Yeah.
And then I heard Peter for the first time through a YouTube ad, and he's like, hey, did you know that it's not just, it's not a matter of lack of intelligence that causes procrastination. And I was like, well, hey, you got my attention, right?
Mhm.
And as he was talking, the more he was talking, he was like, wow, I feel like he's talking to me.
Yeah.
And then as I started listening to his webinar, I think I watched the YouTube video, and I was like, what the hell? Like, this is amazing. So I clicked more, and then I watched a webinar. Well, I had somebody contact me. I watched an hour webinar, then I watched another hour webinar. And even the quotes that he was pulling out, it's like, these are literally the same quotes that I use. It's like this guy came back in time, as an approximation of who I could eventually become, not who he will be at that time, because right, who he was at that moment, right, I could become that. I feel like I could become that, and he's obviously going to go on his own journey and become more, right, that time plus whenever it takes for me to get to that place. But I just felt like, he was speaking to me saying, hey, you could have this too. You could be this too. You could live this life too. And it just, I couldn't not show up for that.
Yeah. I like how you just said that. I couldn't not show up
Yeah.
for that. Yeah. Even though I don't like double negatives,
Yeah.
that's one I'll accept. I
Yeah.
couldn't not show up for that.
Well, I think it's more powerful. I'm not a big fan of double negatives. Part of that's because I was raised by a grammar Nazi, right? Well, so you talk about perfectionism, right? My mom has definitely grown a lot, and she's on her own spiritual journey. But she, for a long time, was a huge grammar Nazi. And like I mean, there would be times where, we'd be driving in the car and
Uh,
I'd be in the back seat, my brother would be in the front seat, and I'd be like, I ain't gonna do that. And this before ain't was added to the dictionary, right? I'm a little kid. And she'd be like, Josh, you're not going to do that. Say it. I was like, you know what? Whatever, mom. It's fine. And I could have easily said it, but she's telling me what to say, which means immediate resistance, loggerheads. And
mm.
so, it's fine. I'm not going to say it. It's fine. I get it. And so, no, say it. Say it. I'm not. And then I'd be like, no, it's fine. She pulled the car over. Say it. I will not have my son sounding stupid. Say it.
Oh,
Right. It's like,
oh, ooh.
yeah. And so, yeah, that's a peek into my childhood. Yeah. So I was very, rigid.
Oh, I was going to say obstinate, but okay.
Yeah. I was very rigid because of that, because I was, trained to be rigid.
Yeah, yeah.
And, Peter eventually, just by the way that he speaks and just by his philosophy, eventually led me to a book I've known about for a long time, but I had no particular interest in, which was the Tao Te Ching. But then with
The
all
what?
this wisdom that he had, I started, listening to the audiobook. It's like, holy shiz. Like so much of the wisdom, I can actually see where, either he's repackaged it or he just happened upon it in the Tao from thousands of years ago is
Mm,
talking about this same principle. And it really gave me such a firm understanding and grounding. Take that rigidity, for instance, right? There's this idea, and I can paraphrase, of course, but this idea that, when a man is born, he's soft and supple. When a plant is born, it's soft and flexible. When
mhm.
a man dies, he's stiff and rigid. When a plant dies, it's dry and brittle. Therefore,
Right.
those who are stiff and inflexible are disciples of death. Doesn't mean you're good, doesn't mean you're bad. It just means,
Right.
and death is where what? Things break down. Things
Yeah.
break down to become their base elements. Well, of course, then if I'm rigid, well, then things are going to break down. That's not just my outer world, because the outer world follows the inner world. That means that my, disease of the mind, right? Maybe my PTSD from being a soldier at war, right? Or, just childhood trauma from abuse, or just, and whatever that is. And then it made so much more sense. Like, and then those who are soft and flexible are disciples of life. It's like, that makes so much more sense. People who don't allow themselves to get upset just because somebody else said something, because somebody said a meanie word, right?
Yeah.
And so it seems so much of our country is drawn and moved, and maybe our world even, by the idea that somebody said the wrong meanie word, and we
Mm,
completely disregard, like, human, humanity, and as we kind of spoke about the business model of pharmaceuticals, there's no room for humanity.
right. Well said.
Thanks.
Hmm.
And so what right now, are you, so you're a trainer, are you going through a cohort right now, or are you building one up?
Mhm. Well, I'm managing a cohort now, and then I'll have my own in June
Nice.
7th.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. June
Mhm.
7th. So June 8th is actually when my summit goes live. So you and I, have yeah, that's awesome.
Nice. Yeah. What's your summit going to be about?
So it's called Cancel Chronic Pain. So it's just about chronic pain, and just like, let's not kill it. Let's not, and let's just figure out how to, get to the root cause.
Yeah.
And I've got different, different Reiki masters, different, distance healers. I've got a cognitive neuroscientist. One lady who I spoke with who had the RA, talked about the, Humera. Well, she is basically a scientist in her own right when it comes to the endocannabinoid system, and
Yeah.
just using, cannabis and mushrooms even. And
Yeah.
not just that, like, she had to learn about that for her own pain, but now she actually specializes in pets, which is awesome. So now she's getting dogs high and giving them a little bit of mushrooms, and right. And I picture like these 8-bit glasses, right, coming onto this dog, this little, joint sticking out, and some Snoop Dogg music starting.
Right. Yeah. That'd be a great commercial or a
That
little,
would, yeah.
yeah, on your brochure kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's
Hey,
cute.
if it's good enough for Cheech and Chong, it's good enough for your dog, right?
That's right. Yeah.
But
Yeah. That would
yeah,
be.
so what is maybe the biggest sense of fulfillment that you get as managing a cohort, right? Seeing these people that much, not all that different from you, that probably looking for an approximation of the same thing. And then you get to see it from not necessarily an elevated level that you're better, but elevated in that you have a little bit more awareness, kind of looking down at them as that awareness is kind of dawning on them.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I just absolutely love it. Let me think about what do I love it about the most. I had a job years ago teaching the entire massage program, and I did that for several years. And at first I was afraid to be a teacher, so this tags into that. So I'd been a massage therapist for so many years, title of that, and a friend of mine became the director of this massage school. So he called me and said, I really want you to come teach. I think you could teach. And I thought, me, a teacher? So I put it off for 6 months. But remember, I'm the therapist. So I thought, how can I be a teacher? I take care of people. I tell them what to do and how to get well. And I'm the go-to person for everything. And I thought, teacher. But after 6 months, I decided to go apply for the job, and I got hired. So in teaching, I was me. I was authentically me. I realized that if I had this notebook here to try to read off of it and tell my students rote by rote, that just wasn't me. I learned to put aside that notebook after 2 days, just know what I had to teach on, and then just ad lib. So I realized that the real true personality of me that I had hidden all this time would be a magician. So I just love being out there and being goofy and silly and laughing. And my students laughed at me all the time. And I just like to be in front of people and sharing. I used to do theater, so I like dancing, singing. I love just that connection in that respect on that deep human level. And that's what I'm feeling. Even though these are Zoom calls, I thought I always needed to be right in person with somebody. But when I'm on these Zoom calls and I get to see the expression and I get to feel things, I can cry with somebody or we can laugh together in these cohorts. And I love that humanness, that level of just real humanness. Them and me, just like it was with my students. I loved my students, still love them today. And it brings back those feelings of just being authentically me, letting them know that they're safe, they're okay, they're loved, and they're accepted. And here I am to guide you through that or support you through that. And I don't know. That's the best way I could put it.
What's fascinating about laughter is that laughter is something that'll actually shut off the body's own survival mechanisms because it's so good for the body. What I mean by that is, how many times have you seen people who are laughing so hysterically they beg you to stop because they can't breathe?
Yeah. Oh, I've been there lots. My kids and I would laugh a lot. I have a daughter, she and I laugh so often, and we just do goofy, funny, silly things. And laughter is so important, and it keeps us well and healthy. It brings our vibration way up. Yeah. Laughter is great.
Yeah. In fact, when I was being trained how to heal by Ed Stracher, right? Part of what made me laugh so much was, right, he would tell these jokes and they were the most off-color jokes. Like, this is a guy who just does not care about having a politically correct way of speaking or way of telling a joke. He would just throw a joke out there like it was like 1980, like when I was first born. And it was I loved it. Because it was his authentic self, and I loved that I didn't have to. This is a guy that you don't have to like tiptoe around. This is a guy who's going to tell you how it is, right? It's just like, you don't have to worry about hurting his feelings. In fact, he's probably going to hurt your feelings, right? Because if you're sensitive and you're trying to tiptoe, he's going to tell you to knock it the hell off and quit being stupid. And but I love laughing. I love people who can tell a joke authentically, especially if it pushes against cultural norms. Right. Gets people to clutch their pearls. Did he say that, Blanche? Oh my God. Right. And
clutch their pearls.
Yeah.
I love that. No, I love laughter. And I realized that with my students back then, when they would laugh at me, I loved having them laugh at me. So it just helped me to be a better teacher and bring in laughter to the classroom, because I knew they were going to learn better with laughter.
Yep.
And they retained it, and it got to where they would chase me down the hallways to give me a hug and tell me how much they loved me. And that's college. That's college students running down the hallway to say, I love you. Do I get you next semester? Do I get anatomy with you? Do I get pathology with you? They were always begging to be put in my classes. And it's not the same, but it's so similar being on the Zoom call. And I can feel all range of emotions, and I'm there for people, and I just love empowering others. I like being empowered, and I like empowering others. And I just feel like the human experience of life is meant to be enjoyed, not with sick and disease and illness and death, so quickly. That, there's just two different paths. And you can cross over on your paths for sure. You could be sick and dying, come back over here. You could be really happy and well, and something takes you over here. So you can vacillate back and forth. But in the end, which one is more fun? And for me, I'd rather be on the path that's full of life and laughter and joy and yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I agree. I would much rather be on the path that has, life, laughter, and joy, because without that, right, there's not a whole lot of room for passion. And as we kind of started this podcast about, passion, without that passion, time runs a lot slower. Without passion, things are, much more difficult, right? Because with passion, you can really push against boundaries and figure out how to move past them without really feeling like it's that big of a slog. But without passion, it feels like a major slog, most likely.
That's a nice summary. Yeah.
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 Well, if there's others who, whether they, have an injury, whether it is that they, want to, learn, the material, that you have to teach, as a trainer, what would be the best way for them to be able to reach you?
Well, I have an email. So, and I have a website. My website is lifesenergysolutions.com. And that's all small letters. So life's plural energysolutions.com. That's my
Perfect.
website. Yeah.
Awesome.
And they can
And
read through there too.
so do you maybe have, I don't know, any final words of wisdom for people who, maybe they're struggling with just the way in which they think. Maybe they're struggling because they realize they don't have passion in their life, but they're not necessarily unhappy, but they're also not happy, right? And they live in this weird gray area, or maybe they just are ridiculously unhappy. Do you maybe have any words of wisdom to be able to help people to start to peel that onion back, to be like, hey, what is it that you truly want out of life?
Right. That's right. That's a good question. Yeah. What do you really want? Some people don't know what they want, and they stay in that neutral zone. Yeah, people can contact me on Facebook too if they want to. That'd be a little bit more personal. They can find me there and we can have some talks. I'd be happy to talk to people and see where they're at and see where they want to go and where have they been. And yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that.
Anya
Well,
Lene, I'm the only one there, and whole nother talk another time. My name was created for me, so there's not going to be another name anywhere. So they can find Anya Lene with the apostrophe on Facebook and contact me through there.
I love that. Yeah, we must, we'll have to have another conversation. I'd love to have a follow-up. And especially once you, maybe halfway in your cohort, might be a lot of fun just to see, hey, now that you have, you've gone through everything yourself, you are seeing that you had this job that you wanted to be able to, empower yourself to travel the world, and now you're in charge of this cohort, and you're running it, you're empowering all these people, and just kind of see where you are on your life's purpose and in your journey, to really help empower others to be like, what, there's nothing different about us, there's nothing different about me or you than other people. We're all made of the same stuff, we all have the same capabilities.
And sometimes we're in our own way. That was me, and I didn't realize that. I thought it was everybody else. Clear the path so I could run.
Yeah.
But it was me who needed to get myself to run myself. It was me holding me back. So that was a big aha moment for me. So yeah. I'd love to talk to anybody. I support and love, and I believe in humanity. I believe in people. I believe in having the life that you want, whatever it is,
I love that. Well, Anya, with the handcrafted name, I've truly enjoyed this conversation. You are a great inspiration. I love what you're doing, and definitely looking forward to having you on another time. That'll be a lot of fun.
That would be fun. I enjoyed it too. So yeah, thank you very much, Josh. It was great.
My
Yeah.
pleasure.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very
may
much.
love and truth always guide your path.
Yes. Thank you.